those who don't know, the Free State Project is a movement of voluntary human action where we are trying to concentrate libertarians in the state of New Hampshire.
I think we've done more in the last decade than every other libertarian movement combined has accomplished in the last 5 decades.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, libertarians and anarchists, movers, natives, and those on your way, thanks for tuning in for the glorious return, Season 2, Episode 1 of Free State Live, where you get to hear about all the ways you can live free and thrive in the free state of New Hampshire. But first and foremost, as always, welcoming back our hosting cast. I'm Justin O'Donnell, former Libertarian candidate for U.S. Senate, author, and host of the Subversive podcast. And joining me back from a much longer than necessary break, the stand-up comedian who's nothing but backbone, local comedic talent, Bill Barger. How you doing, Bill?
What's happening, Justin? Good to be back.
Yeah, so how's the weather at 7 feet tall? That's our clinic here. We're finally at the last days of summer, and I feel like you're the first ones to feel the cold.
Never ask me that again.
I won't. But also we have our keyboard activist and Discord czar, Manchester family man, Kevin from the internet. Kevin, how's it going?
Hey, what's happening? Glad to be back after our extended long break.
I know you got to revitalize the Boogaloo, don't you?
Oh, man, I move a couple things around and pretty much just been hanging out. So
you can always fit some Boogaloo into your schedule. But here we are back for Season 2 by popular demand. Thanks to all of you who nagged us. We know it's election season. We got rung up, and kind of missed the boat, but we're back. And to kick things off for Season 2, what better way than welcoming a new mover to tell their story? All the way from the left coast, but now nestled free in the Granite State from Portland, Oregon, Kristen Reynolds. Kristen, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you.
So you've been here actually not all that long, not even a full year yet. You came last winter?
That's right. I came in January.
Okay. Give us maybe a little bit of background on you. Like, what possessed you to pack up your life from Oregon to New Hampshire, big city living in Portland, Oregon, to Western New Hampshire, where you don't even have cell phone coverage?
Well, what happened was the lockdowns. Portland has always been supportive of its local businesses. And it was one of the things that I just really loved about that city. Tons of boutiques, tons of small little mom and pop vendors, restaurants, etc. And the middle class was strong there. And, everybody was incredibly supportive of, someone could be making something local and charging $2 more than Walmart, and they would buy it. That was the scene there. And then with the lockdowns, it just killed the businesses, and it blew me away. I couldn't understand what was happening. Here was a city that was made up of, small businesses, basically killing those businesses. And it was just crazy. I mean, the governor was opening and shutting restaurants. She'd be like, well, you can all open now. And so the restaurants would go out and buy a ton of food. And then she'd say 3 weeks later, oh, we're going to close, and then, the restaurants would lose all that money. And then, oh, you can open up again. And I think she did this. She did it 2 times. I think she did it 3 times. And there are very, very few restaurants that can handle that kind of thing.
Now, was there any kind of pushback, any kind of resistance? Like here in New Hampshire, we saw sprawling resistance. Like from the day the governor said lockdown, there was people like, the hell I will, and refusing.
Yes.
There were restaurants that opened their back doors so regular customers knew how to come in. There's a place in Nashua I used to frequent where he just boarded up all the front windows and had a sign that said curbside delivery, call for service. And then if you went around the back door, it was open business as usual with still 10, 15 customers in there hanging out. Like there was an active underground resistance here in New Hampshire. What was some of the resistance you've seen? Like, was there any in Portland? Because I mean, Portland is a city that kind of promoted itself, at least internationally and on national news coverage during the BLM stuff, as a city of resistance, at least against the cops when it was politically convenient.
Yeah, yes, there was resistance there, but it was very strange. I mean, the whole thing has just been really strange. No, there was almost no resistance to the lockdowns. People basically completely bought the narrative that we were having something that was incredibly dangerous and it was just worth this kind of sacrifice. And and the few people that thought, that did feel it was a bad idea were just completely swamped by the people who I was scared. I mean, I encountered so much hostility from people. When I would say how I felt, the hostility was so high that, I mean, I was actually physically frightened. And so I think that there just wasn't enough. There weren't enough people who resisted. I think in Portland now, there's Eastern Oregon, and that's a different story.
Should be a different state.
There's
in the country.
Well, I think they feel that way. They would agree with you. They'd be like, yeah, we don't belong in this state. And there's a lot of libertarians on the East Side, too. But the big cities, the West Coast part of Oregon, people just went with it. And the harsh thing about it was that so many people lost their jobs. It's very expensive to live in that city now. So the homelessness went up. The upshot with the lockdowns was that the homicide rate went up, suicide rate went up, addiction rate, depression, anxiety. People lost their homes. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah. So Mark Warden in the chat says, just bring them to New Hampshire. Those from the West Coast who love liberty, they absolutely belong here. And you figure that out. You figured it out for yourself.
I figured. Well, what happened was, I was thinking, okay, what finally did it was somebody unloaded their gun, basically right near my home, and shot up a bunch of cars. The police, found 87 cartridges. I thought I was, listening. I thought I was hearing fireworks.
So let me get this straight. You were scared of gun violence in your community, so you moved to the state with the least gun laws in the country.
Well, it turns out that that's a good idea. All right.
Absolutely.
It turns out, Anyway, now I left because it was, I was actually a very frightened of what was going on in Washington, and New York was talking about it, of being able to throw people into quarantine camps. I think New York was trying to get this by, and I don't remember what happened. A judge said no, or something, but Washington State did do it, where they didn't have to take you to court. They didn't have to do anything. They just had to say you're a danger to the community and put you into a quarantine camp.
I missed that one.
Florida had a bill like that too, where it was any public health official, if they deemed that you were a danger to public health, they could basically, just like a chief of a police department say, hey, we'll just go arrest that person. Actually, even more power than the chief of the police department, because they have to have like a warrant or probable cause or whatever. Turns any public health official into a little mini tyrant.
Yeah, basically.
State of
Which is terrifying.
It was
free state of Florida.
Yeah, and so I thought, well, I don't know where they're going to go with that. So it was a combination of a variety of things, a combination of watching the city just completely fail, and then seeing the governor and the state, enacting these more, draconian or threatening draconian measures. And, then they were going to bring the smart card in, and I thought I really need to get out of here.
Had you heard about New Hampshire like a while ago, or was this like a...
No. So I Googled libertarian communities.
That's a start.
I just literally put into the search engine libertarian communities, and New Hampshire went right up.
That's awesome.
And
that's good to
and
know.
so I read the whole Free State thing. And as I read it, I got more and more excited and happy. And I thought, I think I have someplace I can go.
What was
Now,
the time
that's
between
my new
like the
tagline.
Google and your? Oh yeah, I was gonna say, what was the timeline between like you Googling that and your move to New Hampshire?
Let's
you
see.
come up on a year here.
I would have Googled that in probably July of last year.
Oh,
and
2021?
then I visited. I came and visited New Hampshire in October.
Great time to visit, everyone.
It
by
is.
The way.
Yeah.
It
If you're
is
watching,
an
it's
amazing
around
time
the corner.
to visit. Yeah. And then I moved in January. So
That's awesome.
pretty fast.
Yeah,
Pretty
October. That's definitely
October
fast.
is definitely like one of the peak times to visit. I love the joke that a while back I was trolling the internet trying to find content to make of people who dislike libertarians to like kind of clap back at them, and I stumbled upon a TikTok girl where somebody's asked a question, can somebody explain New Hampshire to me? And a girl responded with, I really wish I could, but it's just like a libertarian dystopia with fall foliage. And I'm like, that is the most perfect description I've ever heard. It's a libertarian dystopia with fall foliage, and our foliage is legendary. I mean, it sometimes the weekends suck when you're stuck in traffic that's all Massachusetts, New York plates, but
Dystopia is a stretch.
Yeah, dystopia.
Yeah.
It's a fun dystopia.
When my husband and I came in October, we went to we timed our visit so that we could go to a newcomers meeting in Manchester.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The New Movers Party?
Yes. And
okay.
And we practically cried. We were so, because it had just been so locked down and everybody's masked and and just this whole huddled, terrified of everyone else, kind of atmosphere in Portland. And then we come here and everyone's like, la, 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 la. It was like a room full, like all these people, and they're all no mask.
Kids running around.
You'd put up with the masks for like in the whole COVID lockdowns for like a year and a half.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yes. And my understanding is there's plenty of people who are, masking still. I think some people have decided that's just going to be what they do.
Yeah.
No matter
correct.
what,
Even
because,
here. Like, and that's one of the beautiful things about New Hampshire is like you're free to make that decision at this point. It's like there was such a resistance to the lockdowns that we got so much good legislation passed stripping the government of the power to ever do that again.
Yeah.
But there are still people who make that conscious choice on their own, and they're allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't force you to.
Right. I have no problem if somebody wants to wear a mask. Like that's fine. I just don't want to be forced into that.
Yeah.
So what did you get involved in once you got here? You've been here for what almost 9 months now?
Yeah.
Would you start?
It's been 9 months.
What did you start filling your time with once you started spending time in New Hampshire?
Well, I'll tell you, I was a woman with a mission because I was so scared of what I saw. I was so scared of it, and I thought, oh, I just gotta go somewhere and help them, not have this happen, right? Like I've got to go and do something, and I'm so grateful to be here. And, so it was like kind of a give back thing, like, yay, thank you for having me. And now I'm going to give back as best I can. Right. And so, first thing I did was I joined Rise Up New Hampshire, which is a great group of people in Keene. And the group is founded and basically run by John Michael Dumais, who's just a great guy. And, they meet every week. And so I started meeting every week. And then I started to, meet some libertarians. I made a call out to Chris Lopez, and said, hey, I'd really like to meet some libertarian women, how do I do that? And so she hooked me up with Caroline Urbanski and Angie and a few others in this area. And, I had a chance to get to know some of the women here, and I went to the Stitch and Bitch and Stitched and Bitched.
Yeah.
And that
It's
was
a great night.
it's a good group of women, and it was fun, and just starting to get to know the areas, find out what's going on, what people are doing. I went to Pork Fest, and met some people there, and I started to just get sort of a fantasy wishfulness about wanting to. I thought, wouldn't it be great if all the people in this region, could all be together in one room and we could just see how many of us there are. That was kind of the very beginning idea of, this event on the 24th was, what if we were all together? What if everyone in the Monadnock region was together? Because I was just curious, how many of us were there? It's like I've talked to people and they're like, oh, there's this many or there's this many. And but I keep talking to people and I'm thinking, I think there's more.
You're probably going to need a bigger room.
I think there might be more than you think, right? Like keep talking to people. I think there might be more. And so I said, I mentioned it to John Michael because, the problem with being a new person is nobody knows who I am, so I had one person who thought maybe I was part of the FBI. And I thought, well, I don't know how to tell you I'm not, but, I'm not. But, I get why you would be nervous because you don't know me from Adam, and I'm from Portland. So, I get it, so I said to John Michael, I said, I really don't know enough people and they don't know me. And he said, oh, we can do this. We can do this. And so, really, basically, he made it happen. It was like, I'm doing everything I can to help him. But, it's essentially him because this is his hometown. He's from this area. He knows a bunch of people. Yeah.
That helps.
Yes.
That is super
they
important.
know he's not part of the FBI.
Hey, don't worry. Being accused of being a Fed is just a rite of passage, and it means you've made it to the right spot.
Okay.
If they were,
Everybody.
Most places, people aren't even worried about that.
Yeah. Right. So, I do love that you landed out west in the Monadnock area. It's a gorgeous area of the state. You really don't have cell phone service or any crime to speak of out there. I do love to joke, like especially with people who move to New Hampshire because of an issue with crime in a city like Portland, looking for somewhere safer. I live in Manchester, and Manchester is probably the most dangerous city in New Hampshire, and it's the safest place I've ever lived.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I've lived in Boston, Massachusetts. I've lived in suburbs outside of Boston that were more dangerous than Manchester. Like we have the lowest crime rate in the country for a reason. And it's because people tend to just kind of respect each other out here. And outside of the city, out west in your area, I'm sure it's even a different breed of libertarian that you're meeting out there and hanging out with out there than we do here in Manchester. What's it been like getting integrated into the community aside from being called a Fed?
Well, I think the people here are incredibly kind and generous people. I have just been welcomed in so many ways. Everybody, I just have rarely encountered, this number of people who are just so, reach out and have been so welcoming to me. And I really, really appreciate it. So
Chris doesn't call it her welcome wagon for no reason.
Yeah, she's doing a welcome wagon. I feel really welcomed. And when we first got here, we didn't have any place to stay. At all. I can't tell you. I was like, we really were acting like refugees because I just honestly just didn't know when this shit was going to hit the fan. It's like somebody's going to come to my door and just drag me away. Because I have a Facebook group and I been posting different things and I thought the Facebook police will come and get me. I don't know what's going to happen. And so I thought. Well, we just packed our stuff and left. And, Lauren, let's see, trying to remember her name, Lauren and Jem, who were Pork Manor. You probably know who I'm talking about over in Winchester. Let us stay in their, in their place for a month, while we just looked for an apartment. And, that was, I mean, that was sight and seeing. They just said, yeah, you can come, you know. And I was like, well, do you want to know anything about me? No, just
You're
come,
one of us.
it'll be fine. I was like,
Yeah.
that is amazing and great. Yeah.
It's a good thing you weren't a Fed.
Well, it's also one of the beauties of being a well-armed community, right? You know, you have to worry a little bit less about that. Like, you can cite like 3 different like libertarian economists, and you're looking to move to New Hampshire for freedom. All right, yeah, you can stay in my spare room. Also, I'm strapped all the time, so it's gonna be fine.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
So what is it like that you're actually hoping to gain? So you say you want to get involved, you want to help, you want to pay it forward, do the activism. You're helping with this event in Swansea to help get all the organizations and groups together. What is like your vision of an outcome for everything in like what's the next steps after this event? Do you see making this yearly, doing it all the time, maybe traveling around the state and doing it in other regions as well as Monadnock? Or what would you like to see happen there?
Well, you know what, for me, a lot of that is going to be answered at the, you know, as I meet people at this meeting, you know, because I don't have the answers to that, partly because I like to see what's needed, you know, and so, you know, it asked, you know, talking to people and just finding out what do people need, you know, and then from there, I would go to the next step of, oh, well, maybe this, you know, I kind of fantasize again. Well, wouldn't it be neat if we had this thing, you know, that would meet that need? You know, I know John Michael is talking to a couple people about possibly making this, you know, doing a regional thing all over New Hampshire, you know, like he is thinking about, you know, spreading this out. I don't know whether that really would be me, because I like the idea of really hunkering down into a region and trying to help a region, you know.
Localism.
I'm into that, you know, so I'd be probably more inclined to think what does this region need, and you know, but you know, I like that he's, you know, excited about maybe doing it with other places.
Yeah, I've joked before that one of my favorite parts about the push for secession here in New Hampshire is that the moment we secede in New Hampshire, I give it maybe a week or so before somebody starts a Cheshire County secession group and a Hillsborough County secession group to try and split off from the new country of New Hampshire. Like localism absolutely is ingrained, not just in libertarian. Like we talk about the most local form of government possible, and the most local communities matter the most, but it's just a New Hampshire culture thing. God, if you go up to the North Country and mispronounce Coos County to a native, they're going to start going to get pitchforks and torches. Like people have local pride here, and that's an incredibly understated thing, and how it affects the kind of just natural native libertarianism in the state.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah. But, you know, I think, you know, like when I'm looking at, you know, what's going on nationally and internationally, I do think that thinking locally is just, it just has to be, you know, because we can't, you know, so we just can't depend on the world, you know, like this whole, you know, international, we're going to get things shipped from all over the place, and, you know, everything is made in China, et cetera, you know, it's like that is obviously going away.
Sure. And to that point, I think one of the most important things Free Staters do all the time isn't just get involved politically. It's, as you say, focus locally. What does your region need? Does it need maybe somebody working in new real estate? Does it need a seamstress shop? Like these kind of things can improve a community and a community self-reliance, and no longer need to rely on outside imports coming in to sustain them. And that makes them more free in a whole different way than just voting at the State House.
Definitely.
I interrupted Kevin there.
Oh no, I didn't have anything exciting to say. That's
to go back to the localism. I think it's the natural tendency of people, right? If New Hampshire was to secede from or declare independence from the federal government, which would just be because we don't want to be encumbered by all that nonsense anymore, somebody would be upset, but they wouldn't be like in Massachusetts to do anything about it. So they're like, well, we'll be just like the US. We'll reincorporate from in here. But then it just becomes like your own localism. Why don't you just have those same rules? You know, it's just like the natural one-upsmanship of like, well, you wanted to be your thing. on your level. Well, we disagree with that, and we're not having any part of that. So we're just going to be our own smaller little thing. But like, you end up playing right into the same strategy. You know, by trying to beat that person, you end up joining them and like doing it better.
It makes sense at the end.
I do like that a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kristen talked about earlier, one of her favorite things about Portland was the focus on kind of local economy and small business. And I think a lot of people don't realize that what keeps small businesses down often isn't big business competition, because people would really prefer to buy locally. They'd prefer to buy from people they know, their friends, their neighbors, and support that local economy rather than a nameless corporate structure like Walmart. But it's government that comes in and makes it so hard for these small businesses to even exist.
It's really true. It's really true. Yeah. There's a lot of hoops that small businesses have to jump through. And you know, one of the things that Portland did was they would stair step. So you could, you know, just speaking of restaurants, there were a lot of restaurants that had started out, they just had a little cart, you know, and then they would move to, you know, something slightly bigger, like maybe a bus, you know, or sometimes they would have something that was sort of in between, but it didn't have any bathrooms, but that was okay. You know, Portland would allow the stair stepping. And so, you know, eventually they'd have a whole restaurant, you know, whereas, you know, I'm originally from Virginia, I'm from the East Coast originally. So Portland was, you know, where I've been for the past 10 years. But, you know, I remember there were so many rules. You had to have this, you know, huge, wonderful handicap bathroom right away as an example, you know, that, you know, maybe a tiny little, you know, pizza place couldn't afford. And they didn't have anything in between, you know, so it was like either you had the money for the whole thing or you could do nothing, right? You know, and that made a difference.
Right. So, and well, hey, New Hampshire is rated the #1 small business friendly state in the country for a reason.
Nice.
And that's our awesome Liberty legislators here. So a bunch of whom are small business owners themselves who see these issues that they have to face and they have to deal with and keep them out of their own way, and by default help their neighbors, help their communities do it. And I think it's great what you're doing. I mean, this event sounds fantastic. I've actually been writing a lot lately for another project about one of the big great things in New Hampshire that should attract people is our decentralized kind of activism here, where there's so many different organizations, each working independently towards their own mission, their own purpose, their own goals, but kind of in concert all alongside each other to improve liberty and freedom here in the state in kind of complementary roles. What kind of organizations can people expect to see at your event this weekend?
We have quite a few. We have, you know, in the neighborhood of around 10 or so. And it's pretty exciting. We've got 603 Alliance, Rebuild New Hampshire. I'm reading them so I don't miss them, you know. Health Freedom New Hampshire, the New Hampshire Committee of Safety, We the People, Rise Up New Hampshire, the Free State Project, New Hampshire Healthcare Workers for Freedom, Weston Price Society, the New Hampshire Children's Health Defense, you know, and I think there's a few more, but I don't have them on my list, but you know,
what a great problem to have that there are so many organizations fighting for your freedom in the state that you need a list to remember
amazing?
them.
Isn't that just great?
That was just in Keene too, right?
Yeah, that was just in the Monadnock
area. These are many of them are statewide, of course, but they have people in this area, you know, and so the main idea is to try to get as many people in this area who are you know, freedom folks together. And you don't have to belong to a group, you know, you can just be a freedom oriented person and come and just see who else is out here, you know. And the idea was that people would be able to network, you know, find out what each other's doing, maybe see places where collaboration is possible, you know, but we don't have any rules. We don't have any, like, you don't have to collaborate, you know, there's nothing like that. It's just simply, hey, let's get together in a room and see who we are see what we're about, what we're doing, and maybe we'll be creative. Maybe something will come up. Maybe you don't know. When you get a bunch of people together, you never know what kind of creativity, but there's always creativity. People are incredibly creative, and all you have to do is just get them together, and
yeah, that's a brilliant
something
idea.
will happen.
So if you guys watching haven't heard of it yet, haven't looked it up, you go absolutely check it out. The Monadnock Gathering of Freedom Groups. It sounds like it's going to be a great time and awesome event. I believe you can learn more about it just right on riseupnh.org.
That's right. And we have several people who are going to be doing giveaways. Like Kirby Q's is going to do a giveaway, and we have Funky Noodle, Country Life, Wondrous Roots. They were all doing giveaways, Health Freedom. So, there's going to be fun stuff. It should be just a great chance to, meet people.
Awesome.
It's at the Village Church in Swansea.
I'm not going to say I'll be there. I want to be there. I'm going to try and be there. My schedule is so fluid and flux, but I have it marked down. And I'm going to try and get it out if for no other use than to take that drive out before the tourists are out peeping the foliage, because I haven't been out to Monadnock in over a year. Swansea's great little town, great little community, great place to host something like this. And I think I'm looking forward to the results. I'm looking forward to more collaboration between these decentralized organizations moving forward in the future and working to make our state more free. But I mean, anything else you want to leave people with, Kristen?
Well, I think that this, New Hampshire is a really neat state, and I'm really grateful to be here. I love meeting everyone, so if you come to the meeting, please come up to me and say hi, because I do like meeting people and just seeing who's here and saying hi. And
Well, we're excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us in this libertarian utopia of New Hampshire. We're not a dystopia yet.
Yeah.
Not a utopia.
But everybody watching in, we're coming up on August. We're coming up in fall,
there.
leaf season, foliage. Like we said earlier, it's the perfect time to visit New Hampshire. So go to fsp.org/visit New Hampshire, get in touch, and Chris can help you plan a trip. You can see where you're going to come, meet your friends, meet your neighbors. If you're new here, or if you're just tuning in as a native and you're just kind of learning about what's going on, make sure to check out the fsp.org calendar. There's no better packed list of freedom events and liberty-oriented events in the world than the FSP calendar. There's multiple events to pick from every single day. What a problem to have. There's too much going on for your liberty to be contained in one spot. Sounds terrible. It's pretty great. And if you want to support the Free State Project and the mission the Free State Project is doing, you can always go to fsp.org/give. Get in touch with Chris Lopez or any of the board members of the FSP. But right there on fsp.org/give, you can help contribute to the ongoing marketing efforts and outreach that the FSP does to reach people like Kristen and let them know what we're all about. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming on. Bill, Kevin, anything you guys want to leave off on?
Kristen, you're great. I will try to make it to that community meeting. That sounds awesome. And I'll definitely come say hi.
Join the Discord server.
As always, Kevin plugs the Discord server. Does the link still work, Kevin? Discord.gg/FSP?
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah. Discord.gg/FSP. You can go and talk and chat. It's busy and hard to keep up with because it's great people having a great time.
It's where the cool kids are.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching. And until next time, be free.
Have a good one.
Yeah, I don't believe in destiny. I just do what's best for me. Don't listen to my enemies. They're just full of jealousy. Yeah, this legacy, you gon' see what's left of me. You gon' see success in me. You ain't seen the rest of me. I just wanna be the best at what I know. Better than the rest, just watch me grow. Put me to the test and watch me go. This is my quest, I'ma make it known. They call me obsessive, oh I know. Call me selective with my notes. Call me aggressive with my flow. Call me offensive even though Joey ain't gonna lie.